Legacy media is falling apart, and as it crumbles, a void is opening, a void that we intend to fill. The big legacy news networks currently average just 1.2 million viewers a weeknight, and those numbers are only going to get lower. Legacy media is dying, and the younger generation has moved on. Legacy media panders. Legacy media lies. Legacy media does not know what the truth is, and they don't care about it. Legacy media is a dumpster fire. This is why we few in our wild imaginations have started the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Our goal is to take down the legacy media giant of the last 50 years with our 5 stones. We started in 2016 with our flagship show, Cross Politic. Since those small beginnings, we now air on DirecTV. Our broader podcast network now gets over 4 million downloads a year. And our Fight Laugh Feast pub, which includes TV shows like This America, The Rowdy Christian's Guide, Pastors in Politics, and As the Lord Pleases, with your support, many more to come. Our goal is to become the flagship new media 2.0 network over the next 50 years and take over nightly news, sports, sitcoms, hunting shows, and more, all conveniently stored for you in our Fight Laugh Feast pub. We're already reaching the next generation through our podcast shows on YouTube, X, and our pub, while also tapping into legacy media audiences by airing our shows on TV through DirecTV and Xfinity. We have made a lot of progress with some duct tape and a good bit of intuition and a lot of sweat. And now we need your support more than ever. The TV networks have had such a negative impact on our households, and we're trying, by the grace of God, to put a stop to that. We have the opportunity. We just need the army. Now more than ever, we need you to join our pub to help us reach our goal of 1 million pub supporters in the next 5 years. There's no way around it. Competing with Fox and the Alphabet networks without money is virtually impossible. It's cheap for you to join. And when you do, you're combining your small monthly support with a growing army of like-minded Christians. We have thousands, we need millions. So if you want more of the Alphabet network's misinformation and lies, don't join. But if you want to give us a mere 5 stones, then please join the pub, and together we will take a swing at the head of big media, all the while fighting, laughing, and feasting to the glory of God.
A master called together a few young men of this generation and spoke to them, saying, I gave your great-grandfathers a time of despair and poverty and global war. They were strong and victorious and built an empire greater than any other. But they were terrible fathers and raised entitled sons and daughters of rot who inherited everything through no courage of their own. To those rotten sons, your own grandfathers, I gave abundance and wealth and stability. But they pissed it all away on debauchery and sexual revolution, establishing many idols and slaughtering tens of millions of children in sacrifice to their appetites. One generation fought against the perpetrators of a great Holocaust. The next dishonored that victory with an even greater Holocaust of their own children. The children who did survive, your fathers, carried on the sexual descent of their parents into new madness and new disease, piercing and inking their skin like death-worshipping pagans as they did, establishing special days of pride to celebrate the debauch, slaughtering more children and castrating and poisoning others, claiming to be creators when they were destroyers, mutilating the young and calling it acceptance. All these generations I have judged, and am judging. Their madness now is only a taste of my wrath. The young men were afraid and asked the master why he had called them and why he was telling them these things. Because it is now your turn. I am giving all of this chaos to you, he said. Your inheritance is a world of crumbling false gods crowded with blind and mad worshippers. I am entrusting you with a world of empires built on cracked and heaving foundations. The time of your inheritance is near. You have only a little while to prepare yourselves. Seize this moment of chaos and build me a world of sanity and righteousness. When I return, I will judge what you have built for me. With so much rubble to work with, I expect great things. The master turned to leave, but the young men begged him to wait. How can we do this, they asked. There are hundreds of millions of unbelievers in our nation alone and only a few of us. Their master answered, saying, I am not a hard master. You will have the truth and wisdom if you desire it. And you may each choose one woman to help you. That should be enough. Go now and build New St. Andrews College. Carpe Chaos.
That was great.
That was amazing.
Yeah, try that again.
There we go. Hey, y'all, welcome live. Yes, you can already tell by the introduction that Chocolate Knox is not here and that it's just Pastor Toby and the Water Boy. It's good to be with you on, is it Tuesday?
And the Water Boy is on the soundboard.
Yes.
Just for those of you who are not watching, if you're listening, that was Gabe.
100. 100 my fault.
Yeah. And if it, just to be clear, if it was me, I wouldn't have been able to get the music to come on. So just for the record, like
Toby's giving me props where the props were warranted. Hey, we're going to be in DC at the inauguration. We got tickets to go to the inauguration.
Yeah.
Looking forward to kind of seeing anybody out there that is either listening to the show.
If you're going to be there.
Let's meet on the lawn.
Come find us. We'll be there in the crowd.
In one of the areas. We've never been. We got tickets. I don't even know what that means. Are we standing? Are we sitting? I know there's a non-ticketed section somewhere, maybe way back.
We're in the ticketed section.
Yeah,
way up there.
The funny thing is our friend got these tickets for us from Amy Klobuchar, which is his congresswoman.
Thank you, Amy.
So so we're just using all the connections.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Absolutely. Is your website user-friendly, fast, and cohesive? Does your brand clearly communicate who you are and what you have to offer? Whether you're just getting your business started or you've been around the block, Mad Bear Creative can help with all your design needs, from brand identity and web design to SEO and marketing materials. As a husband-wife team, Julio and Roslyn are excited to partner with other small but mighty business owners to capture attention, drive engagement, and unlock growth for your business. Visit madbear.io. That's madbear.io to sign up for a free consultation and discover how Mad Bear can help you build your legacy.
And they're cheerful people. They aren't mad.
No.
They're just, mad is like cool.
They just have mad.
Like, this is mad skills.
Mad skills.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. The mission of Armed Republic is to honor Christ by equipping free men with tools of liberty necessary to preserve God-given rights. In the Armored Republic, there's no king but Christ. We are free craftsmen. Body armor is a tool of liberty. We create tools of liberty. Free men must remain ever vigilant against tyranny wherever it appears. God has given us the tools of liberty needed to defend the rights he's bestowed to us, and Armored Republic is honored to offer you those tools. Visit them at ar500armor.com. That's the letter AR, the number 500, the word armor.com. Now we've got internet sensation Billboard Chris coming on, but I hear you have to make an announcement really quick.
Yeah, so unfortunately, since YouTube has suspended us twice in December, we're on our third strike. If we get our third strike, we get kicked off YouTube. So right now, while we're kind of under this cloud, this YouTube cloud, we just ask you, go over to Twitter right now. Go to Cross Politics Twitter page.
If you're on YouTube.
Or X, excuse me. Don't dead name Twitter. X. Go to X right now, and you can watch the live show. You can also go to Rumble right now.
So this was an extended invitation.
Yeah.
To join us.
You can go to Facebook also. So Facebook, Rumble, and Twitter. And you can watch us live, and of course, comment there. We're watching the comments there and all that stuff. But we got to go off YouTube right now. So as my staff turns off YouTube in 3, 2, 1,
peace. Internet sensation Billboard Chris is the father of 2 girls. He actively takes a stand against gender ideology. He firmly believes that children should be free to be who they are, not indoctrinated to believe they were born in the wrong body. Chris, thanks for joining us on Cross Politic.
Thank you so much. I'm honored that we can't air on YouTube because I'm such a dangerous individual. And I'd like to add, I want some of that body armor that you were just advertising.
You should have it behind your
to wear it in Canada because it's illegal. I can't carry anything for the
body armor
self-defense, and I can't even wear a vest.
Wow.
No way. You cannot wear a body armor vest in Canada in public.
In some other provinces, I would be able to, but not in British Columbia.
Wow. So
and I could use it sometimes.
Yeah.
Because for viewers who don't know, you guys called me an internet sensation. That's very nice of you. I think that's an exaggeration. When I think of myself, I don't think of the internet. Of course, that's how most people know me. I think of all the hours I've spent standing outside, wearing signs, my main sign that says children cannot consent to puberty blockers, having tens of thousands of conversations in almost 100 cities in 9 countries across the world now.
Wow.
For thousands of hours. So
Yeah.
that's what I do in my spare time. I stand outside. I quit my job to raise awareness about this child abuse.
So
But,
actually,
it's
we've
nice
got a
that I can
video.
reach so many people via
Oh,
the
you do?
internet, of course. Sorry.
Well,
No, it's okay. It's okay. We actually got a video, just a 1 minute video, because I know some of our viewers are probably not aware of you. We are, because we pay attention to politics and all the stuff going around. But let's just play this video real quick so you can kind of see what Chris is talking about. Staying out there hours and hours wearing a billboard and talking with people. Roll the clip.
So, your name again?
My name's Clementine,
Clementine. So Clementine went on puberty blockers at what age?
12.
And you detransitioned at?
I detransitioned earlier this year, actually, but I had been going off testosterone since about 17 because it gave me psychosis.
When did they put you on testosterone?
I was 13.
Wow. And when did you have a double mastectomy?
I had a double mastectomy at 14. I'm currently going through the process of getting reconstructive surgery, and it was harder to get that approved. I actually wasn't able to get it approved by my insurance.
Right.
But it was much harder to get surgery for that than it was to actually get the original top surgery procedure.
wow. Man, I
So
see
this is a nice
see-
conversation.
I see Chris's face though, and I feel that with the face that you made.
That's right.
When she said she started testosterone at 13, had the top surgery at 14. It just breaks your heart. And you have, you have conversations, and I know, probably a lot of your conversations maybe are not that
This is a nice one.
pleasant.
Yeah.
But I assume it's that just the insanity of that's driving so much of what you're doing.
So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, 100%. Now, I don't run into detransitioners all the time. I was in town. I was in LA for something with PragerU that I was doing the next day. And I thought I'll head over to UCLA, and Ben Shapiro happened to be talking there. I didn't even know that. And I just set up my tripod with my phone on it. I'm a one-man show.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes later, Clementine comes along. And what's really interesting about this is I didn't realize until later, but I'd heard about her lawsuit. So later in that conversation, you can hear us talk a little bit. I asked if she's going to sue, and she said she'd been in talks with a law firm, and I'd actually heard about her lawsuit, which hadn't been public yet, but she is suing. She's suing Johanna Olsen-Kennedy, the lead gender doctor at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. She's suing Scott Mosser, the surgeon, the hospitals themselves, and a therapist that she was seeing. But let me just tell this story real quick.
Yeah.
She had sexual abuse as a child, I think when she was 7. I've read the lawsuit. It's all in there. This, of course, made her not happy being a girl. Naturally. This is understandable. Men can understand this. She was talking with her school counselor, and the school counselor led her to believe that because she didn't want to grow up to be a woman, that meant she was trans. So her parents did what parents do in this situation when they don't know much about this, and they took her to the gender clinic at CHLA, where they got this radical, one of the top child abusers in the world, Johanna Olsen-Kennedy, meeting with them. And on the first appointment, she separated Clementine from her parents. Within half an hour, she prescribed her puberty blockers, and she told her parents separately that they could have a dead daughter or a live son.
Wow.
At 13, she pushed her onto testosterone because other boys had started going through puberty. And the doctor pushed her onto this, not Clementine. The doctor saying, well, you're going to fall behind if you don't start on testosterone. And similarly, the doctor pushed her into getting a double mastectomy at 14 because she said the results of the surgery would be better if it was done at a young age. The testosterone caused psychosis. She went off of it at 17. She eventually fully detransitioned at 19. And when I ran into her just a couple months ago, that was in December. That was just a month and a half ago. She is now suing. So this is huge news. This is a very important lawsuit because Johanna Olsen-Kennedy runs the busiest gender clinic in the country.
Wow.
And we need these insurance companies. They will have to pay out. If you read this lawsuit, it's phenomenally outrageous.
Yeah.
But I can't see under any circumstances how they don't pay out the max settlement, and there are maximums, unfortunately. But the insurance companies who insure these doctors are the ones who have to pay that out. And I'm confident that in time, with enough of these lawsuits, these insurance companies are just going to pull out and say, we're not going to insure this procedure anymore or these practices.
Chris, do you know if the payout is more than what she paid for all the surgeries? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it would be more. I don't know off the top of my head how much, but there are caps. I think we're talking, and it's per practitioner. So I don't know. Maybe it's 500 grand. Maybe it's a bit more than that.
Yeah.
It's not in the millions. So it's certainly not going to kneecap any of these insurance companies. But when they look at the entire practice, and this actually happened in Missouri at the Washington University Gender Clinic, where Jamie Reed worked for 4 years as case manager. She saw 1,000 kids come in and out those doors. She blew the whistle on all this about 2 years ago. But they passed new legislation in Missouri, which banned puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and surgeries for kids. But the children who were already on these drugs were allowed to continue. The lawyers for the gender clinic said, well, we don't like the liability now, because part of the legislation was extending the statute of limitations where these kids could sue.
Yeah.
Because previously, before latest rounds of legislation the past couple of years, in every state in the union, medical malpractice statute of limitations were 1 to 3 years. That's been extended out now, 20, 25 years in a lot of these red states. But the lawyers for the clinic said, we don't like the liability, and they shut it down themselves. So there's lots of ways to slay this beast, and we need to use every tool and weapon at our disposal, but we are going to stop this ideology for sure.
I can't imagine that a lot of these cases on both the women's or the girls and the boys side had some sort of past sexual molestation. Do you know the stats on that? The numbers?
We don't have firm statistics on this. I spoke with Dr. Quentin Van Meter, who's the former president of the American College of Pediatricians. He's a practicing pediatrician. This is the smaller group, the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatricians. They're the big one.
Okay.
They are the ones who are pushing this.
Yeah.
This smaller group, they have lots of common sense, and he estimates that 60% of the children have been sexually abused. And when you read their stories, it's the same story all the time. A lot of these kids have autism, and a ton of them, especially the girls, but the boys too, they've been sexually abused, trauma, bad home lives, whatever. There's something else going on. There's eating disorders. And sometimes it's just the parents, oftentimes the moms, who themselves have borderline personality disorder. So there's a lot to this, but these are just struggling kids who need help, not harm. But the number one prescription they get now when they walk into any of these clinics is without any questioning, without any therapy at all, because that would be deemed invalidative of their gender identity. They're just given puberty blockers right away.
Chris, how did you get into this? I mean,
I'm going to grow up and wear billboards and debate.
we were joking before the show started. You know, you said your parents named you really well, Billboard, Chris. But seriously, I mean, when was the first time you went out and started talking to people, and what drove that, and how did you get into this?
So I'm a 49-year-old man today. I was 44 when I started this campaign. I've got 2 girls. They are currently almost 13 and 15 years old. So at the time they were, I think, 7 and 9 when I first started learning about this. And as any parent can understand, any rational person can understand, when you come across this term puberty blockers, you say to yourself, what the heck are those? That doesn't sound very good. And that's what I said to myself. And I looked these up, and of course, they're exactly what they sound like. We as a society are stopping the healthy development of perfectly healthy children with a cancer drug. This is a drug for prostate cancer. It's for endometriosis in women. It's used for uterine fibroids. This same drug is used on pedophiles to this day up in Canada. In America, the UCLA said it was inhumane, so I think this is stopped. But they use this on pedophiles to chemically castrate them to prevent reoffending.
Right.
UCLA, not UCLA, the ACLU, sorry, American Civil Liberties Union, they say that's inhumane. And at the same time, they are suing all of these different states that have stopped the practice. They're suing for the right to sterilize kids with this same drug. So I started learning about these drugs, and then, of course, the cross-sex hormones, the opposite sexes hormones, being given to children because they've been taught that they were born wrong. They've been taught that they were supposed to be something they're not. That's the message of gender ideology. The left tries to portray this as some progressive thing. We're teaching kids that don't conform to what the left would agree are regressive and sexist stereotypes. We're now telling these kids that they were born in the wrong body, that they have a gendered soul, and that the only way they'll find true happiness is by sterilizing themselves and becoming an anorgasmic, lifelong pharmaceutical patient.
Wow.
This is child abuse. But this isn't some fringe issue. This is now being taught. This ideology is being taught in virtually every school in the nation, all across the West. It's coming from all of our leftist governments, a lot of the conservative ones historically as well. It's coming from the UN. It's coming from the World Economic Forum and the WHO and all of these institutions. And there's billions of dollars behind it. And so we had a situation here in Canada. It was the same in the US where nobody wanted to talk about it. You would whisper the word trans. It was that one thing that you weren't supposed to talk about, because then you're some terrible bigot. And there's these 5 letters that strike fear in the hearts of men. LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Shuts everyone up.
Right.
Well, we should be able to talk about anything. And when children are coming to lifelong harm, that's a conversation we need to have a whole lot of. Instead, it was the exact opposite. People were losing their jobs for talking about this. So I got tired of it. I'm a dad. The only thing I care about, as I'm sure you guys care about if you're dads, is the legacy we leave for our children. What's this world going to be like for our kids? And we cannot leave a world for our kids that is trying to change the sex of children. We cannot leave them a world that doesn't even know what a woman is. This is insane. It's a step way too far. And I used to be a financial advisor. I had a real job. And in that job, you are observing everything going on in the world because you have to pay attention. And I've been watching for a long time our world go down, this dwindling spiral. And I decided I had to do something. So I did what every rational person would do, and I quit my job and became a human sandwich board.
What was? I'm sure
Wait.
I'm sure this tested your wife.
You had me all the way till that line. What?
Your wife's like, no sandwich board, please.
So the first thing I did was I actually put up a billboard, a real billboard, on the side of the street in Vancouver. And it was very controversial. It was very hateful. It said, "I love J.K. Rowling."
Wow.
I heart J.K. Rowling.
Okay.
And I was following the lead of this fantastic woman in the UK. Her name's Kelly J. Keane. She put up a poster at the Edinburgh train station that said, "I love J.K. Rowling." And it lasted one day because some people on Twitter complained that it was hateful.
Yeah.
Because, of course, J.K. has spoken out about this child abuse. She's spoken up for women.
Right.
And they took it down. And I just said, this is so ridiculous. I was reading Harry Potter every night with my little one. Best time of my life, by the way. Every parent should do this. And I just couldn't believe it. We can't even say we love J.K. Rowling. So I said, forget that. And I put up a big billboard that said the same thing. It also lasted just a day. A Vancouver politician said it was hate speech. They forced the company to take it down over the weekend. They paid guys overtime to come in on the weekend and take down this sign. The guy was up in this big boom, way up above the street. And the machinery broke, so he got stuck there for a couple hours. They'd only covered up one little bit of the billboard. I tweeted out, "God, is that you?" And then they brought in more guys on overtime to rescue the first guy and then eventually cover the thing up. But I followed that up with billboards all across the U.S. in September of 2020. And those ones stayed up because freedom of speech is still alive and well in the United States of America.
Yeah.
But in Canada, look, I'm just a normal guy. I'm living out in the suburbs. I'm in a cul-de-sac. I'm nobody. I've got no platform.
Yeah.
But I have a voice, and I'm old enough to understand the power of an individual when they put their mind to something. And I knew if I just started heading outside and didn't stop, that this would grow into something. Because for me, it's important that we get outside and start conversations. We have to get out of our echo chambers on social media. We need to reach people from all walks of life, all demographics. And the only way you do that is by going outside. So the billboards were good at starting conversations. And then because they took one down, I said, well, they can't take it off my back. And I had some made. I went and stood in the exact location at first. And then I started going into downtown Vancouver, just talking to people. Then I started traveling in Canada. And then when the borders opened, I came to the States. My first trip was to the great state of Texas.
Promised land.
And that's when things really took off for this campaign of mine. I mean, it was growing slowly, but I used to get 30 likes a tweet. Now, if I have like a mildly entertaining video, it gets a couple million views.
Yeah.
But in the United States, there's a different energy. And I think it goes all the way back to 1776 because your country was born out of rebellion and this fighting spirit has remained.
Mhm.
And there are so many people doing so many good works down there when it comes to fixing the culture and fixing these problems. I got so much more support right away.
Yeah.
And I've just kept going. And today, now, this is the number one cultural issue talked about on the conservative airways for sure. And we have 26 states that have passed legislation to stop it.
Have you seen the needle move in Canada at all in this discussion, or are you still getting suppressed, banned? Can you do a billboard now?
I don't think the companies would work with me. They're going to make a business decision and not work with me. But we do have, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and all that up here. Of course, corporations can set their own rules, but no one's stopping me from doing anything. I say whatever I want, wherever I want. And yes, absolutely, the needle has been moving this entire time. I can see month-to-month changes from when I started. Absolutely nobody knew what puberty blockers were when I started. Now I get nothing but high fives and support.
Wow.
The province of Alberta, led by Premier Danielle Smith, just introduced legislation to stop this for under 16s. That's a half measure. It's not good enough, but it's 100% better than no measures. So we have to start somewhere. So I'll try not to be too critical of that. But 16 and 17-year-old girls shouldn't be getting their breasts cut off because they believe that they're boys. That's just insane. But we're coming along. Canada is probably going to be the last country to fix this because we are quite a mess politically.
Yeah.
And we don't really have any conservative media pushing back. And we have other countries where it's not been the politicians, but the medical bodies that themselves have put a stop to this, like in England, Finland, Sweden, etc. Truth's getting out there. You can't stop it.
So, Chris, a lot of our analysis, I said before the show, we're Christians. We believe that Jesus is Lord over politics. So when we look at like what's going on in politics, we go back to what the church was doing 50 years ago or something like that. We tend to put the blame on the church because the church is the light on the hill, and whatever happens in the church is eventually going to come out in the streets, good or bad. That's our thesis, roughly. So we would, draw a connection between, let's say, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they would have two worship services, one for the parents and one for the kids, and so the kids would go down in the basement and do fun church, and the adults would go up in the main floor and do real church. And then we make that connection between like abortion. If parents are not worshiping with their kids together, they're pushing their kids into play church or whatever. Well, they excommunicate their kids from real church. Then no wonder mothers are killing their babies in their mother's womb. Now I know that's a big logical jump. And we could go into more detail in another time, but that's kind of how we draw conclusions here. And so I want to say, what was happening in the church for us to get to the point where 14-year-olds are,
what I'm
eating up and tearing up their bodies.
I remember a few years ago, I can't even remember. I should go dig up the article, but there was a magazine article. This is probably like late teens, like 17, 18 in there, even before like the trans thing was like the kind of meteor it's become.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first articles I ever saw. And there was this mom explaining why she had started letting her little boy wear girls' underwear. And she was a professing Christian mom. She like described it all as, he just really wanted to wear or girls' underwear. And I went to my pastor and he was, and there was like this, it was this like struggle session about why. And so this is before it's like, surgery type stuff. But it's like, they were priming the pump for that.
Right.
And it was a professing Christian mom. I think she was from Texas. And like, so I blame you. So
man.
But like, it's like there's been stuff going on in the church. I know you were trying to ask a question, but I just
I was just thinking, I would love to actually hear more examples on this. Cause I'm just thinking like, what if our thesis is, okay, whatever happens in church eventually comes out in culture because worship is central. We're beings of worship. We're created in the image of God. We're supposed to worship God. And so what happens in the church is the most important thing that happens in the week. And then whatever flows out of that flows out into the streets.
Right. At the very least, I mean, I'm definitely curious to hear what you think, Chris, but it seems like this, we frequently have started calling this sort of this radical ideology, but it's really almost religious in nature. It's the kind of commitment that these people have.
Yeah.
To this sort of, if I can put scare quotes around this gospel, like this is going to be the deliverance of these kids. As you said earlier, this sort of gendered soul.
Yeah.
In the wrong.
This is going to make you right
in the wrong body.
Better, yes.
Yeah. This is going to make you happy. This is going to lead to human flourishing. It's a kind of religious sentiment, a kind of religious commitment.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm curious to hear, Chris, what you've seen in all of this, and what your observations might be. Either, have you seen? We're Christians, but we're highly critical of the way a lot of the church has actually not helped, maybe made it worse in some respects. Or from the other side, maybe you've seen some of the religious sort of hysteria related to this commitment to this gender ideology.
So this is a big subject. We could have a podcast just on this question alone. There's, without a doubt, the church has failed completely on this subject. The church has failed, generally speaking, in culture war battles.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, Christians are called to be culture warriors.
Yes.
It's kind of your principal purpose, apart from, of course, your own faith walk and your family and everything.
Right.
We're called to be, we're in the world, not of the world. But you're still in the world.
Right.
So the world's going to do what it's going to do with you objecting or getting involved or not. So you'd better get involved, because when you don't get involved, we have this.
Right.
And
100%.
I think, I don't just like saying, oh, they've been awful. That's not very productive. For me, I think the number one thing is when people don't know how to talk about something, they just don't talk about it. And I think this is one of those issues for a lot of pastors. So you have a pastor, he's up in the pulpit, and he's looking out at that audience, or he's preparing his talk for the week. And maybe there are a couple of families in that audience that are affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pastor doesn't want to offend them. That's understandable. Maybe some are worried about their tax-exempt status. Could be a worry for some. I doubt it, but I've heard that that's out there. But there's a way of talking about this with positivity and truth, instead of just that's wrong. When you talk about something in a positive way, you'll find that idea will spread more quickly. So I always say, and it's true, our children are beautiful just as they are.
Right.
That's a positive message. There's no right or wrong way to be a girl or a boy. That's a positive message. All of these leftists who are pushing this, they will all agree with you with those last two statements that I just made.
Mm-hmm.
They will all say that we shouldn't put kids in some stereotypical box. Yet an effeminate boy comes along and they want to believe he's a girl. Body parts don't determine your gender, but cutting them off affirms your gender.
That's right.
There's a blind spot there. And not all of these people are evil, but they've been indoctrinated. And the human mind is very malleable, and people are easily manipulated. And when you've got this massive multi-billion-dollar propaganda effort going on all across the West, well, it's captured a lot of people. And for the be kind crowd, the crowd who think they're kind as they're yelling at you,
right,
this was the latest progressive thing. And the left has been involved in a revolution since the 60s. Really, this all goes back to the sexual revolution. I say all the time, they don't want to have a revolution. They want to be in a state of perpetual revolution. It's always on to the next thing. And this is the next thing. And they've conflated it with gay rights. They say LGBTQ community. There's no such thing. LGB is gay. Trans is a denial of reality. Queer theory is a political movement which seeks to destroy everything that's good and normal in society.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't understand all this, and they just lock up out of fear because they don't want to offend people. So we need to learn how to talk about it, which is why I'm going to the NRB next month, the National Religious Broadcasters Conference. I'm going to be speaking there.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can give some of these pastors some of the words they can use and breathe some courage into them, because the most loving thing we can do is tell the truth, and we just have to tell it.
I think you're too nice on your analysis, because I think COVID showed us a lot about our pastors here in America. To me, it communicated that, okay, we actually got a majority of churches whose leadership, elders, and pastors are some form of coward and not standing up. I mean, if you know anything about in 2020, we protested again and again. Moscow, we're in this blue dot in a red state. So Moscow, Idaho is where our show's out of. It's a university town. The rest of the state's red. And our city enacted a health emergency ordinance where outside you couldn't stand 6 feet apart without wearing a mask. So you had to wear a mask if you were going to be within 6 feet of someone outside. So we protested that again and again over 6 months. And how we protested, we go out and sing psalms and hymns and worship music and for 20 minutes and not stand 6 feet apart and not wear a mask and then leave and go home. Well, September 2020, we did that in front of City Hall, not in downtown. We did it in front of City Hall, and I got arrested. They picked me out of 200 people and another married couple friend of mine, and they hauled us off to county jail because we weren't standing 6 feet apart or wearing a mask. And President Trump ended up retweeting it, and it blew up all over my arrested, and it effectively won the battle. Actually, is what happened
Here in
Moscow. It did, but what had happened from that is I had all sorts of articles written in Christian magazines and against me, and Christian commentary against me, and Romans 13 against me, and it was in the midst of. At the same time, all these people writing articles against me, their churches were shut down.
Right, of course.
And of course, Pastor Toby's was my pastor, and my other pastor's Pastor Wilson. Well, they had my back. But how many churches? Our show, we heard from so many people that year where their church had shut down or their church was requiring masks, and they hadn't seen anybody's face in 6 months in church. We did our first national conference in 2020 in Nashville. Actually, we got kicked out of Nashville. We did it in Franklin, Tennessee, because it was open in October of 2020. And that was our first conference. We had about 1,000 people there. And I remember multiple people coming and saying, man, we haven't worshiped together for 6 months.
Right.
I haven't seen someone's face at church for 6 months, that kind of thing. And so I'm just giving you that as examples where I think the church is.
I think that was a great, like, we got our report card in COVID, like, whereas like a bunch of us were pretty sure that the church was not doing good. The pastors were not doing good.
Yeah.
And your point about, the pastor, I mean, our pastor, Pastor Wilson here in town likes to say that, the job of a minister it's a kind of job that constantly requires courage. And it's not, an indoor job, with
it's not an office job
with climate controlled rooms. I mean, it's a job that requires courage, and it's always been a job that required courage. And I think going back for decades, though, we've not been exercising courage. Of course, there've been exceptions, and there are still many faithful churches out there because there've been shining exceptions. But you talk about the 60s, you talk about the sexual revolution. It was like, I think the church stopped speaking then. Pastors have one job, and our job is to say what the Bible says.
That's it.
And it's just, this is what the Bible says, and I'm just the messenger.
Don't do it or do this.
God created the world, and to what we're talking about here is like, I mean, the image of God. I mean, why is male so glorious? Why is female so glorious? Because it reflects the image of the Almighty God.
Yeah.
I mean, and so like, but the fact that we weren't teaching on what the Bible says about what it means to be a man, what it means to be male, what it means to be female, what it means to be a woman, the glory of manhood, the glory of womanhood, and then to your point, the positive message of that. I mean, this is glorious. And we cowered, and we were afraid because we knew that there'd be people that hated us, there'd be people that yell at us.
We'd lose some tithing in our church.
I always, it reminds me a little bit of what you do, but I teach a class for young men who are training to be pastors, and one of the things I encourage them to do, and I've done some over the years, is just open air preaching. We have a college campus,
University of Idaho,
in town here. And
you should come through our town. We got University of Idaho and Washington State University. We got 7 miles apart. Really good town.
But just the practice of having to interact with real people as you do. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't want to be like the angry, crazy street preacher guy, but I was like, but I want to go talk to the people. Like, I care about these people. They're students that live in my town, and I know they're being constantly brainwashed with lies.
And lied to, yeah.
And so I just went out there and I just stood up and I just said, hey, my name is Toby. I'm a pastor here in town. I'm here because I care about you. And I just want to talk to you for a few minutes about what the Bible says about. And then I just, I talk about, sexuality. I talk about marriage. I talk about, the creation, whatever, or, talk about the existence of God or the gospel. But there's something about that when a preacher does that and stands out and even, even to somebody like you who's going out there with your billboard, it's like you get the right kind of thick skin. And but it also helps you like actually have compassion on people. Like both like you have to be the right kind of strong. But of course, if you just get angry and then you just join the mob, that doesn't work either. But compassion, grace, and firmness that is really needed. And I think there's been a massive lack of that in the church for a long time. Yeah. I don't remember if we had a question there, but I have a question.
We're just talking about cowardly pastors.
Yeah.
He's being too nice to the pastors.
That's right.
If I can just follow up what you did say there, both of you,
Yes.
and I think we're all right to varying degrees. These aren't black and white issues. I think also people didn't really know about this. They didn't understand it. I can distinctly remember in August of 2022, I tweeted out the videos from Boston Children's Hospital where their own gender clinicians, their own doctors were talking about, for example, what does it mean for a child to be transgender? And it's things like a girl who tries to pee standing up, a boy who pees sitting down, playing with the opposite gender toys, trying on a sibling's clothing. These are all signs that your child is transgender and can be treated. So for a lot of people, almost everyone, I think they thought, we know this is kind of weird. And I'm sure there's some weird stuff going on in these gender clinics, but these are at children's hospitals and we don't understand it all. And we don't really know what's going on. I had to shine a light on exactly what these people believe. Because as soon as conservatives, especially, but really everyone, apart from the far left 10%, as soon as they saw what these doctors were saying, they couldn't believe it. And as soon as I showed what a phalloplasty is, what a vaginoplasty is, how they carve up the forearm tissue, they cut off all the tissue and the fat and the blood vessels and everything, and they roll it up to form a fake phallus for these girls. This is being done at children's hospitals. Yeah. They're doing this to boys under the age of 18, by the way. One was celebrated on TV, Jazz Jennings. He was 17 when he had his vaginoplasty done. And yet the left want to say this isn't happening to kids. But I think for the first time, those videos really showed a lot of people exactly what was going on, exactly what they believe, how insane this is. Matt Walsh's movie, What is a Woman, showed that there was absolutely nothing underpinning gender ideology because the dean of women's studies at these universities couldn't even define what a woman is. Yeah. So everyone very quickly woke up that this is just totally insane. This is a great big cult that spread all throughout society. And then the conservatives and the pastors started getting going, but we still have to get them going more. Yeah. And to speak to your COVID comments, man, I mean, this is just the latest thing in a long history of mankind where authoritarians control the entire population. The handful who do speak up get imprisoned, killed, whatever. Yeah. It was very similar with COVID. The one difference with this and why I stress the importance of the messaging I was giving earlier, the positive messaging. Nobody can say you're being a bigot. Nobody can say you're being terrible. They're not going to arrest me because I say children are beautiful just as they are. They got nothing. Nobody has a response to it. Nobody. So this messaging is just really effective. It breaks it down to the just simple truths of the situation, and it can't be stopped, and it's not going to be stopped, and we're just going to keep educating people one conversation at a time.
Chris, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I've pointed out a number of times. I know that your billboard it says something about minors cannot consent, right? I think you
children cannot consent to puberty blockers. Yeah,
there you go. And that word consent, I think is really crucial and significant. And part of the reason is you mentioned earlier the holy letters LGBTQ, and then of course that plus that mysterious
plus sign.
What is that? What is that? And the thing that a number of us have pointed out is that at least one of the things I think being alluded to by that plus sign is pedophilia.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a pretty unmistakable logic. If you insist that a minor can consent to a sex change operation or puberty blockers, then I do not know on what logical basis you could say that that same minor cannot consent to a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, if you can say they can make a life-altering decision about their hormones and about their body in that way, I don't know how you could possibly say that they could not consent to a sexual relationship. I don't know how I suspect I don't know how far up it goes or how deep it goes, but I suspect there are some pushing the ideologies who know exactly what they're doing and are seeking. I mean, in the sexual abuse world, we call this grooming. It's a kind of grooming that is trying to get kids thinking about sexuality, even so much so that they're hormone blockers and having surgeries and so forth. I think ultimately with the goal of sexualizing them and being able to use them sexually. I'm wondering, we talked about sexual abuse that leads to this. I'm wondering if in your experience, have you noticed this? Do you agree?
100% I agree. So gender ideology is a subset of queer theory. Part of queer theory is, of course, normalizing what they call minor attracted persons. Now, there are all sorts of academics and sexologists, even some sexologists who would agree with me on aspects of gender ideology. We have these individuals who say that pedophilia is an innate sexual orientation.
Yeah.
James Cantor, Michael Bailey. These are two individuals who hold these beliefs. They both happen to be gay men as well. If you look at the organizers of many of these pride parades, several have been busted for pedophilia recently. So, of course, underneath the banner of queer theory, the pedophiles are all going to assemble. They're going to find each other and they're going to push ideologies which help normalize their own sick condition. So, I mean, you have all these academics. It's rife through academia that they teach that we shouldn't stigmatize them, that it's the action, it's the molestation which is the sin or the crime, not the thought itself, because they can't help it, the poor pedophiles. Nonsense. We should stigmatize the heck out of it because, as any right-thinking, common-sense individual knows, as soon as you destigmatize something, you get more of it.
Yep.
And we've seen, and then this is also related. I don't know how much you're following all this, but there's this increase in homosexual men adopting children.
Yeah.
And there was at least one significant case that just broke recently of them, molesting children that they had adopted. And I don't think as a Bible believing Christian, I'm looking at this and saying, well, of course, God said when you even exchange the right use of men and women, you're already going down a dark place.
Yeah.
And you're embracing confusion.
Yeah.
And if you're confused about what sex is for,
right,
what marriage is, then of course you're at some point going to also become abusive of children.
Yeah.
And that's why it's even sort of remarkable that even on the so-called conservative side, there are people celebrating Dave Rubin and his homosexual partner adopting a baby, and it's like, guys, don't you see where this goes?
And Dave Rubin was even more like a eugenics adoption.
Oh, I know.
Process.
But
like he went through a magazine basically and chose,
with these
blonde and
but it's
blue
all,
eyes.
It's all connected, and I'm sure you've seen this as well.
Yeah.
Yes, so I frequently post things against surrogacy, specifically. Babies need moms and dads. Right. This is the ideal situation. Now, of course, in society, there are all sorts of situations which are not ideal, and kids need to get adopted out, and we end up with different types of families. You don't design a child. with forethought to not have a mother.
Right.
We don't take puppies away from their mothers for 8 weeks. Yet babies, humans who are born, who have known nothing but their mother's heartbeat, their mother's voice, are then taken away and handed to 2 strangers who paid for this child.
Right.
That child will never have a mom. There are all sorts of identity issues that come with this later trauma in life. It's wrong. It's evil. And I don't care what people call me. And it's probably a good thing we're not on YouTube, because now you probably would have got a strike today.
we knew it was coming.
But this, you know, I have friends who are gay, okay? People are same-sex attracted. You can define what being gay means. No one can define what trans means. No one can define what a gender identity means. But yes, obviously babies should have mothers and fathers. And yes, a lot of these relationships end up with them. It's way too common, sexually assaulting their own children.
Yeah.
And with gay men in particular, and I have friends who are gay, and they'll tell me this themselves, they're obsessed with sex. They have huge numbers of partners. And so it's only natural then to think of people who are obsessed with sex, having unhealthy sex lives with multiple partners. Of course, this is now a greater risk for the children in their lives. This is just common sense. It's not hate. It's just reality.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, we've known for a long time that if fathers abdicate their responsibility and raise, have bastard children, they sleep around and they impregnate their girlfriend, their whatever.
Lots of
we
women.
know the damage
That does to children.
that does to children. We have all sorts of reports on
Right.
this, economic reports on this.
Yeah, the incarceration rate
Rates.
of illegitimate children, the
Yep.
drug use rate,
the high school graduation rate is 11th grade.
suicide rates.
Yeah.
all these things are tied to.
So we admit it with the fathers,
Right.
and then now we're proactively like taking the children out of the mother's hands.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
What,
just it's totally insane. And by the way, like, we're coming at this from a Christian angle today. But for those who are watching this who aren't Christian, it doesn't matter. This isn't about religion ultimately, because this ideology teaches one of two things: that either God created us wrong, and these children were born wrong, and now they need a pharmaceutical company, or that natural selection failed. 1 billion years of natural selection failed, and we now need a pharmaceutical company to help our children be their true selves. So either way you slice it, this is totally insane. And I know in relatively short order, I'd say less than 10 years, we're going to reduce gender ideology to a pile of ashes, and which we then need to send on Elon Musk's rocket ship to the sun and incinerate those ashes on the surface of the sun to make sure we put it completely out of its misery, because there's not 1 ounce of truth to any of this. I used to think this was so big, it's pushed by everyone, there must be something to it. And after months and months of research, it dawns on you at some point, there is not 1 hint of truth to any of this. It's all a pack of lies.
Wow.
Well, one of the things that we got 1 minute left, or actually 2 minutes. One of the things that I like to reiterate in this conversation too is, I know you were kind of getting at, okay, if there is no God, or if there's a God, we still have the same problem. In terms of the pharmaceutical companies, apparently are the hero,
The Messiah.
the Messiah of all this. But the other thing I like to remind everybody is, like, well, we all have 2 things in common. I'd say actually 3. We're all going to die. We all make mistakes and sin, and we all have faith in something.
Yeah.
And how you answer that question has everything to do with how you view men and women, how you view children, how you feel. Where are you going to go? Are you going to go? Are you going to be forgiven of your sins, or are you just going to go back to be a clump of cells in the dirt?
Mm.
And so we all sin, we all make mistakes, we all die, and we all have faith in something. So how do you answer that question?
Right.
Is the utmost important for your happiness in life and in your morality in this life.
Right. Yeah. You trust in the pharmaceutical companies
Or God.
you're gonna trust in
that's right.
in the Supreme Court.
Is Big Pharma your hero?
Yeah, you're gonna trust in democracy. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can place your faith in.
Right.
And for 2,000 years, the faithful within the church have been proclaiming Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Chris, really appreciate you and taking the time. Appreciate your work on this really important subject.
Where can people follow you?
Where can people follow you on X or whatever else?
Yeah, X, Instagram, YouTube, at Billboard Chris. I have a website, which I'll be updating soon, billboardchris.com. People can support me through there if they wish, because I'm currently doing all this on my own dime. I'm going to Davos next week to the World Economic Forum. That's going to be fun.
Way. Wow.
I've got a lawsuit coming up in Australia. That'll be fun. Against the government for freedom of speech because they tried to take down one of my posts, and Elon is also suing them. So our case is being heard together. So you know what? Good things happen when you go outside. Follow me. I post a lot of my conversations online, and hopefully it helps to educate you so that you can educate others and protect your own kids from this madness.
Really appreciate you, Chris, and appreciate your courage. Thank you for doing something. I think you're right. There's so many people that just
yell at their TV.
Yeah, just watch or just despair and don't do anything at all. And so thanks for taking responsibility for your family and for your time. And Lord bless you and hope to catch up with you soon, maybe sometime in person.
For sure. It's a date.
I got to read this ad, Gabe.
Get into it.
In a world overwhelmed by chaos and confusion, it's time to take a stand. The Built to Conquer conference is here to help families reclaim the spiritual ground that's been lost. You can actually play music behind it. It'd be kind of cool. We're equipping men and women with the tools and resources they need to stand firm against the challenges of our times. This is a full-day Bible conference with the following speakers: Caleb Gordon, Brett Badgett, Brandon Scalf, Josh Eaton, Dr. Michael Staton, Chris Gore. Keep going. Oh, Gabe Wrench.
Yes.
Andrew Rappaport just added. Tickets are $50. Get tickets at calebgordon.org. calebgordon.org.
Oklahoma. Hope to see you guys there. Well, thank you, Chris. And if you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. If you have kids, go baptize them.
Yeah.
Until tomorrow. We got some great interviews this week. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Love God with all your whole heart, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
Wanted. Young men to rebuild Western civilization. Must be unafraid of pain, blisters, intellectual rigor, and a lifetime of long shifts with swords and shovels, digging ditches, repelling invaders, and reading stacks of books taller than their fathers. Must be impervious to manipulative women of all sorts, giggling virgins, cyber skanks, and even full cauldrons of Karens or hand-wringing clergy, but always seeking to hear and heed the words of Lady Wisdom. Immune to the leadership of hypocrites and LARPing online masculinitods, unaffected by abusive authorities, petty professors, and all brokers of official respectability. Willing to hoist the Jolly Roger and Johnny Cash's favorite finger whenever faced with idolatry. Long-suffering joy and determination required. Must be willing to dwell among the tombs and graves of the long dead, seeking truths that cannot die. Exhaustion guaranteed. Conflict guaranteed. Mortality guaranteed. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for the undaunted.
You sit in church week after week, embracing the truth of God's word. You believe the gospel and claim Jesus Christ as your Lord. Yet you continue to struggle with pornography. You feel like a hypocrite, returning to the sin you hate that mocks the God you love. You desperately wonder, is lasting freedom even possible? Yes, you can overcome pornography, but not alone. 2 Timothy 2:22 says, "Now flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." Only by repeatedly running from sin to Christ with other believers can you hope to enjoy lasting freedom. You can live with purity and integrity. Take courage, seek accountability, and do whatever is necessary. Get equipped at accountable2you.com.